Awesome. Thanks, everybody. That was a very, very nice introduction. I think after he said that, I don't need to do anything, so I'll just stand in the back and answer questions. Thank you so much. I want to sort of run through a couple things with everybody. This is legit. Like, how do we all make decisions? How did we decide to eat or not eat that breakfast donut or that breakfast bar? How are we going to make this decision today when we see that cookie at 3 o'clock for the snack break? Should I eat that cookie or not eat that cookie, right? They're usually really good too, which is part of the problem. But before we get into that, first I need to sort of, sorry, but I'm not sorry. I don't do pretty fucking slides. Like, I just don't. You know what happens when you do pretty slides? Everybody asks you to make their slides. So I don't want to do that. So I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry that my slides aren't gorgeous. And I don't have a marketing department. This is my why. This is why I do what I do. This is my family. It's Riley on my far right, your far left. They were shocked yesterday when I told them I'd do this, and they were like, "Why are you doing that in front of people?" I'm like, because it's the fun stuff. They want to know about you. Riley's a little bit of our thespian. That's him actually busting out the Hamilton rap battle at the school talent show. We did have to have him take out the curse words. This is my son, Bodie, who's a little bit more of our athlete and goofball. My wife, Kathy, who for the first time in 11 years is actually on the Amalfi Coast right now. So I literally came in from the East Bay while the boys are at school. It's her first vacation away from us, so we're really excited for her to do that. And of course, there's Lola, our dog from about 2 years ago. My funny story is that my wife, in her family, she was the only girl for about 80 years. Yeah, so all her cousins are boys. She has a brother, all her nephews, no girls. So when we decided to get a dog, I was vetoed. We're getting the dog, and I'm going to dress it up, which is fine by me. We love Lola. She's a lot of fun. But it's a fun story. That is my contact information. Literally, I don't care if you want to talk about hiring me or not hiring me. Maybe you got a deal stuck in the pipeline. You don't know what to do? Call me. Text me. LinkedIn with me. I will gladly take a phone call from anybody to talk about whatever it is you need help with. I don't charge for it. It's just good karma for me. And I think it's good karma for you. So I want to talk a little bit about ego-driven decision making. Okay? We all make every decision based on our ego. We all try not to. I have an ego. Everybody's got an ego. How many people here have ever made a decision based on your ego and you go, like maybe a day later, it was like, that was the worst decision I ever made. Yeah, that's great. So here's the first thing. Thank you for volunteering, and thanks for sitting in the front row. There's $20. I like to give out money. But for $20, I should make you take my card too. But in front row people, we always get dissed, right? I was the front row kid in school. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But I want to talk to you at a super easy level. Hopefully, I feel like I'm a comedian. Like, I'm used to more of a lavalier mic. We have 3 ego states. This stuff has been taught in psychology and psychiatry for a long time. It's very similar to the id, the ego, and superego, but this is way more interesting to me than anything else I've ever seen. And it's created by this guy named Eric Berne from the 50s. It's been around for a while. People like it, and it's easy to understand. Basically, we have 3 ego states to help us make a decision. One is our child ego. This is where your feelings are stored. You know you're dealing with a child ego when you say, I want it. How many people have ever gotten into an argument with their significant other? Right? I want it this way, I want it that way. Guess what? You're both acting like children. Like, that's ultimately what it is. Okay? We're going to talk about what happens, sort of next. And what's really important is that this is where your decisions originate. When you need to make a decision, if you don't want it, it's very hard it's going to be a bad decision in a lot of ways. We've all bought something that we thought we wanted, but in reality we didn't, because we didn't go through an entire thought process. And so if your prospects don't want it, right, they're not going to respond. They're not going to tell you. If you don't talk about the pains that they have, it's going to be very, very hard for them to actually want what you sell, right? This is the challenge when we get into sales, where we do need to know and we do have to learn about our features and benefits. But if we start featuring and benefiting people, but don't talk about what pains they're trying to solve first, then our features and benefits don't resonate. Or we end up sounding like just the average salesperson. right? We've been talking a lot in life about lately, how many people have been hearing about how to be, empathetic in sales, right? You got to be empathetic, right? But you don't need to be empathetic. Something has to happen first. You actually have to be mindful, right? Go back to that argument you've ever had with a significant other, or maybe it's a time where you were really mindful about what your significant other was doing, and you just knew to go do something. Hey, you look like you needed this today. It's the mindfulness piece, being able to recognize and be aware that someone has a challenge or might have a challenge. That's what's going to help you become empathetic, right? That's the piece. So when you hear mindfulness in business, that's what we're talking about and why it works and why it matters. You then have your adult ego state. How many people do pros and cons, right? Pluses and minuses, upside, downside? Anybody? Or everybody skip that part? We're salespeople. We don't try to be rational. We're emotional, right? So that's you. If you make that list, pros and cons, should I do this, should I not? Right? I'm sorry, not should I do this or not, but hey, these are the good things, these are the bad things, let me make a decision, right? We'll make decisions off that. Here's the part from the business perspective. Your adult ego state, your rational you, is the one who gives you permission to move forward. So if I'm an SDR and I'm cold calling, hey, can I have 27 seconds to tell you why I called? Guess what? That's you trying to get them to be rational. Someone will go, yeah, I got 27 seconds, right? When you say, can I have 30 seconds to tell you why I called? Nobody believes you. Their rational brain says, you're not asking for 30 seconds. Everybody asks for 30 seconds, and it's really 10 minutes, and you don't want 10 minutes. But when I say 27, it works, right? By the way, I give credit to Connect and Sell for that. That's one of their pitches. But this rational you is the piece that you have to address in sales at every stage. This is how you go from stage 1 qualifying to stage 2 discovering to stage 3 selecting, whatever stage names you have in your CRM. You got to get to this rational point, and that's based on certain pieces of information. If you can't get your prospect or your customer to give you rational answers, that's what you've got to focus on. How do I do that? Well, I do it by being mindful. I do it by being empathetic. I do it by talking about their problems before I talk about my features and benefits. That's really what you're trying to do. So now, then we have this other ego. How many people have parents? Everybody's arm should go up, right? This is the challenge. The parent ego state, this is the one that gives you approval or judgment, right? This is the one when you call your mom, and you tell them you're in San Francisco, and you got this great job as an SDR, and they're like, they're going to pay you for that? They're trying to sound supportive, but we take it as, judgment, right? This is right or wrong, good versus bad, appropriate versus inappropriate. This is the part you're dealing with when you're actually talking about finances more often, right? That's the piece you're looking at. This is the one that gives you this approval or judgment about what you're doing, who you are, and what you're saying. So, just from the donut perspective that I give, right? You wake up in the morning, you come to a conference like this, and you're like, oh my God, look at those donuts. Or there were some cakes down there this morning. And our child in us goes, oh my God, I really want a piece of that. I'm going to eat that. And immediately, for most of us, the parent kicks in. You can't eat that. That's really unhealthy. There's so much sugar in there. It's all processed. It's not gluten-free, right? All those things start to come to our mind. That's your parent ego state judging you. Then, at some point, maybe your adult person comes in and says, well, just eat half of it. Go for a walk, right? Is apparently, I'm not the only one who struggles with donuts. Thank you, so I appreciate it. So, but the same thing has to occur when you're talking to your prospects. They have to have some wants. Sometimes at an SDR level, it's the want to know more. Not necessarily they want the product, but they want to hear about it, right? And so in their mind, they're going, oh, we might actually need that. I do want to at least hear about it. I'm not sure we need it. It is a salesperson. I hate these calls. I can't believe I picked up. And then the adult will say, yeah, you know what? We actually do need to take a look at this. I don't think we're buying right now, but we need to at least talk about it. Like, let's look at it. That's sort of at the SDR approach. On the sales side, right, it could be you go through the first meeting after your SDR set it up, prospects willing to have another meeting, and maybe they're going to go through the demo. Yeah, I'd actually like to see the demo. I want to see the demo, right? By the way, don't give up your demo without getting something back. This is my tip. That's not part of this, but I will say this. Hey, Sarah, before I walk you through this demo, because if I don't show you something that works, if it breaks, I'm never going to hear from you again. Before I walk you through this demo, let's assume it's fantastic. What happens next from your side? Pre-qualify your demo, okay? That's at least going to let you know, because most of the time I see demos, and people are like running through them, and they run out of time, and at the end of the session, you're like, yeah, just email me, and next week, and we'll set up the next call, right? So that's just, I'm going to digress back into my session, but I like to give that tip out. So anyway, so these are the 3 ego states, and there's our donut problem that still exists. Now, the goal of today is not for you to actually walk out of here and start psychoanalyzing everybody, as my wife likes to tell me. I feel like you're about to therapy me. But I want you to be aware of them, and we're going to talk about them in a minute. But just remember these are the 3 most important things. Child is where the decision originates. The adult gives permission to move forward, right? Whether it's the first meeting, going to the second meeting, introducing you to the next people, they have to do this pros and cons of whether or not I should bring 6 other people, right? Their reputation's on the line when they think about that. You need to think about that. Tell people, hey, I bet this is going to look weird for you if it goes bad. So I promise when you bring everybody else on board, I promise I won't make you look bad. Right? That's being mindful, by the way. That's showing empathy, that you know that that's their world. And then the parent gives approval or judgment. This is what a sales conversation can look like. You could have 2 parents talking to each other, right? Often not good. Sometimes that combative, pricing negotiation piece. You could have 2 adults talking to each other, right? Just 2 people having a rational pros and cons conversation. You can have 2 children talking together. Nothing bad, not the worst thing. Although, who here has children? Anybody? Is all this ringing true, by the way? Is this sort of like reminiscent? Problem with 2 children, what's the challenge with 2 children trying to decide something? They both what they want. Who said that? You did? Cool. Hold on one second. You're in the middle, but you get your $20. No, they each get $4 for the college fund. So it's like a foul ball. Now she's got to give it to you. But then there's this moment when your prospect's in a parent mode, right? The challenge with this is that when your prospect's in a parent mode, we often defer into the child mode, right? Perfect example, my mom loves to come visit, comes all the way from Savannah, Georgia. And she means well, right? I know she stayed too long when she says, well, I'm just trying to help. But we're in the kitchen. She's like, it'd be a whole lot easier if you moved your dishes from this side of the kitchen to that side. I could empty the dishwasher for you. And she's trying to be nice. I take that as her being a parent tone and being critical of me. And so, of course, I rebel. I'm like, Mom, I'm 50 fucking years old. I know where I'm going to put my dishes. Like, are you kidding? And we've had this argument, right? It's a legit story. So this happens. But in sales, this happens when this person can just pick up the phone and you can just tell they're tense, right? You hear that tenseness. Well, even in that moment, before you say a word, we often get shoved into our child ego state because now we feel bad. I don't want to upset mommy and daddy, right? It's going to happen a lot of times too when, if you're brand new, if you're the brand new rep, it's your first cold call, it's your first live demo, it's your first thing, you're like, I don't want to mess it up, I want to do something nice, I don't want to blow this opportunity. That's your child ego coming through, right? I want to do it well, right? That's okay. Hopefully, over time, as you get experience, you can at least be a little bit more rational. I got this. You know what? I've done 20 of these. I'm down. I'm good. I know what I need to do now. I'm not going to do this like I did in my first 2 demos, but I'm going to do it this way now. I've learned. That's you being rational oftentimes. There's times where they're the adult and you're the child or the parent. There's times where they're the child and you're the parent or you're the adult. This often happens when you're talking to your end user who's got no juice. They love what you do, but they can't pull a trigger, right? That's what we're talking about there. So you've got to sort of bring them in a nurturing way, and I'm going to explain that in a second. For me, this is what a sales conversation really looks like. Like, these ego states fly constantly. You can start your sentence in one ego state and end it in the next, right? It's not meant to be weird, it's just true. Now imagine if you've got, you're there with your manager or boss or another rep, and then they've got 3 people on the phone, where you're juggling 5 ego states. Now imagine what that looks like. So when you talk about getting to know who's on the phone and knowing your audience, what I want you to think about is understanding what everybody's needs are. Here's what I need versus what I want. Make sure you understand that. What do you want to get out of this call today? Guess what? You get their child ego. I want blank. And for the most part, not always, children are the easiest ones to convince to do something. But it also opens them up and it prevents them, even if they're in this parent critical tone, well, I don't know, what should I want? You called me. I was like, well, all right, well, I can show you these 3 things. What do you want to see? Oh, I want to see that. Well, now the armor's starting to come down a little bit. Here's this is the piece I really want people to walk out of here with, is just understanding a little bit about, be conscious when this happens. When they're in the parent ego state and you're in the child, try to get to a rational place in your head, right? Be mindful about it. Be caring to yourself about it. And we want to, in theory, you kind of want to go adult to adult. You really, in my opinion, you really want to sort of get your prospect to be in the child ego state, excited about what you do, but then get them to put some rational thought behind it, right? Now, it goes one step further than this, right? So we have these ego states, parent, adult, child. There's actually 2 parts to the parent and 2 parts to the child. There's the critical parent. You should move the dishes, right? I just want to fold the laundry for you. Sorry I didn't fold it your way, right? And then you have a nurturing parent. So the parent's not all bad, right? We've all picked up the phone calling our mom or our dad or a significant other or someone who's important to us and said, I'm having a struggle. Hopefully, they've turned around and said, wow, I'm really sorry to hear that. Well, tell me about it. How can I help you? What can I do for you? That's nurturing parent, right? That's sort of a good parent place to be in sales, right? Or when you're talking about moving to next steps, your prospect starts telling you, well, in order to do this, I need this and this and this. They're actually trying to nurture you through the process. They're not being critical. They're actually it might sound critical. Now, there are 2 parts to the kid. There's the rebellious child. Don't tell me where to put the dishes, right? And there's the natural child, right? Natural child is exactly what you think it might be. It is the most exciting part of being a kid. It's when your kid can go and, for the first time, ride their bike. We just went through this summer. They're riding their bike down to the little corner gas station for the first time to go get, a soda or something with their buddies, right? They're having a good time. I was in New York once, and this little girl came down the elevator with her parents, and she was probably like 4, and she had on like little pink skirt and some tights and cowboy boots and like one of those, women will know what I'm talking about, but like a vest that looks like it's fur, So she was sort of dolled up for New York City. It's like 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and I looked at her, she had this big grin on her face. I said, is this your first time in New York City? And all she could do was go. And I said, have you ever been outside in New York City at night? She's like, and she was in her natural child state. That's what you're looking to find, right? Nick Mehta at Gainsight, one of their mantras there is childlike joy. That's what you're attempting to get. That's what you're driving to. Well, here's what happens. You can imagine if you're a nurturing parent, you're going to bring out the natural child, right? If I can nurture someone through the process, they're going to be natural and have a real and meaningful conversation. If I happen to be dealing with a rebellious child, someone who's angry, someone who's upset, and I am nurturing to them, it calms them down. Parents, is this sound about accurate for parents? Yeah, I see a couple people raising hands. Young crowd. So it's all right. Critical. Guess what happens when mom and dad criticize us? We rebel. So there's 2 challenges. One, There is a time in sales for you to be rebellious, although it's not often, and there's also a time for you to be a critical parent, maybe when it's about pricing or these things, but you've got to be willing to sort of walk away from the deal. But the challenge is that when you hear this critical tone, how many people have heard this critical tone from a customer or a prospect, and you want to scream at them for being an idiot? Like, cut it out, right? No, I've already extended your 15-day free trial by 15 days. You cannot have another 30 days, right? Like, that's kind of what we want to say. We can't say it, but that's what we want to say, right? So I want you to be mindful of these things. You can also imagine what's it like if you're in a natural child state and a critical parent comes along, right? It's not fun. It's not good. It's not what you want to do. So I want people to be mindful of what this means. I want you to think about where it is. And I just out of curiosity, anybody willing to stand up in front of the crowd and talk about a deal, without naming names, where you recognize this happening? Where you're like, oh, that's exactly what just happened. Anybody here willing to do that? Come on, there's got to be one volunteer. All right, way in the back. Sweet. Thank you. What's your name? Natalie Steele. All right, free plug, Natalie. What company do you work for?
I work for Salesforce.
Nice. All right. So I would say, well, what do you do? But I think we all know.
Well, I shifted gears. I was selling, and now I'm leading a business development team.
Sweet. Okay.
But I definitely have some deals that remind me of very much of what you're describing.
Yeah. Here you go. Make sure she gets that $20. See what happens.
Oh, here we go. Thank you. Thank you. I thought it was 100. Oh. Well, thank you. I appreciate this. So the deal that comes to mind when I think about a situation like this is I was working with an SVP of sales that really did not like my personality. And it was very hard for me and something that made me check my ego at the door, because as much as I wanted to help this person overcome whatever it was about myself that he didn't like, I knew that it was far beyond my role and my purpose for the company and getting Salesforce in the door. So what I did is I actually aligned with some of my my leaders, and I was able to actually, without needing to be the person to drive this and be the vehicle over the line, I was able to help use their dynamic to kind of help this person feel a little bit more comfortable with the deal. And it really was reflexive on me not needing to be the person myself. So it was a really big learning lesson for me, and something that I try to teach my team, because often enough, there must be a reason why in this person's mind, I might have not been the right person to help him drive that transformation for his business. But if I let my ego get in the way, there could have been a point where even a competitor could have come in the door. So in identifying that early, I was able to align with other leaders.
Anybody else want to share a story? Anyone? Wow, can't even give away money. It's so easy. People don't want to do it. How are we doing on time, by the way? 2 minutes? Okay, perfect. So I'm going to stop there. It's actually a good place to stop. And again, this is who I am. Obviously, we have this obsession over dogs in our family, which we never did until we got one. But if you have any questions about how to use this or what to do, I'll take a question or two now. I will certainly gladly hang around and answer any questions you have. But yeah, go ahead.
What inspired you to do what you do as far as...
What inspired me to do what I do? You want to hear a really funny story? I got fucking fired. That's the funny version when it works in the crowd. The real thing was I got laid off. The company I was with was amazing to me. They were getting bought by Intel. Intel didn't need me. You know, I was probably line 2,000 on a 400-line spreadsheet, and they took really good care of me, gave me a lot of runway. And someone picked up the phone and called me, and they said, "Could you do this?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I threw out some ridiculous number. I had a 30-day client. Flying back the first week from Austin doing this. I had a Yahoo email address, by the way. Like I didn't even have a business name. I sit down on the plane next to a guy 6 years ago, and it was Nick Mehta from Gainsight. All of a sudden, I had a second client for 30 days. They had like 12 employees at the time. I keep kicking myself. I should have taken options, because they're going to do great things. So that's the story. So, but any other questions? Yeah.
Just kind of going back to what you're saying about
I've read the Challenger stuff, and I think they're really smart about it. Here's my opinion about sales training in general, or sales in general. Not a whole lot's changed since the Fertile Crescent in Mesopotamia, right? We're all just rewriting stuff that's sort of been said in a different way. I don't know that I would do fair. I don't think I'd be fair to Challenger to try and put the two together, because it's been about 4 years since I read that book. And as I start to build my own stuff, I stop reading everybody else's because I don't want to accidentally take something that's not mine. So I do like Challenger. I know it works. I know that there's a challenge with Challenger that I think they don't always give you the tactics to use. They kind of tell you what to do, but they don't tell you the psychological reason why that works, which is what I do. And I also think it's hard if I'm smart and I have and no offense, if I have a younger person early in their career cold calling me, you're going to get my critical parent, even though regardless of me being a trainer, right? So I don't know that sometimes people don't have enough life experience to deal with that person in a Challenger way. But if you've done a good job of adopting Challenger and coaching to it constantly and teaching it, then it should be fine. That's my opinion. So, yes, sir. Be where you are in your career. Yeah. Oh God, that's an easy one too. I wish I had been more of a student. I'm a Gen Xer. And my mentality was, don't tell me what to do, I already know how to do this, right? I was 10 years old walking home by myself for 2 miles, right? Like today, I'd be sent to Child Protective Services if I did that to my kids. It was good because it taught me some independence, but I think for me and my mindset, I was less open to coaching a lot. I thought I knew it all. And to be honest with you, millennials, you're not the entitled generation Gen X is. We're worse than you guys. We just think we've got more experience underneath us to justify it. But anyway, that would be read more, study more. I mean, it's a lot easier for y'all to do that, people in this generation. Don't just read business books. Go read biographies. You'll learn as much about the business process and decision-making process and good and bad decisions from a biography than you ever will out of although Never Split the Difference, probably my favorite one to be reading, but that's kind of stuff. Yeah. So, all right.
Awesome. Thank you so much, you guys.